Well, hello, I'm Johnny Rowlands, your host of The Shooting Show. And friends, welcome to this week's program. We are indeed thankful to be here. A lot of things going on today's show, and I think I have some notes here that I wanted to bring to your attention. We do understand that the Airline Pilots Association is threatening a strike if the airlines and the federal government do not allow them to be armed in the cockpit. I saw something here where Greyhound bus lines are going to give their drivers cell phones so they can call 911 if there's a problem on a Greyhound. I can just see it now. Hey buddy, put that box cutter down. I'm gonna call 911. I got it right here. I got my finger on the button. I'm gonna call 911. Yeah. That is, yes. Now this, on the other hand, has a much more dramatic effect on an attacker or even a crazy. Because one, if they're crazy enough to continue the attack, you can dispatch the individual and put them out of society's misery as well as their own with a handgun. So yes, friends, you see the anti-gunners have been so successful in terrorizing American corporations and American politicians with this poppycock about people can't be trusted with guns. Go down and look at the bank when the Brinks truck drives up, or the Wells Fargo truck. You know what? They're handling paper. They're handling money, but it's just paper and metal and stuff. You know what? Those guards are going to have a handgun on their side. You know what else? Somebody is in the truck watching that individual is carting that money and watching their back. You know, and they've got a shotgun, handgun, semi-automatic carbine, who knows what. But they are fully armed and prepared to use those guns to protect the money. How much more valuable is one life? It said, well, there would be people, someone might get hit. What about in front of the bank? What about in the bank? There are guards in the banks that are carrying real guns. What about the National Guard people now at the airport carrying full auto guns? What about that? See, those arguments will not hold up. The anti-gun people are so terrified that if the passengers see a pilot, or they're aware the pilots or some of the airline staff are armed, people are going to say, yeah, that makes sense. I can do that. And they're right. They're so afraid that if they see an armed bus driver, the passengers are going to say, yeah, that works, yeah. And it's going to even further set back the anti-gun crusade. That's what it's all about, friends. Well, we're going to go back in time on today's program. We've got some features that I think you're going to enjoy. It is indeed a great privilege and pleasure to be here with you. Let me tell you what, something that I want to mention briefly. As important as our firearms are in our survival battery, shall we say, or preparedness battery, let me tell you something that is ultra important as well. Friends, this is our Immune 26, and I've been talking to you about this on the radio as well as here on the television program. This is the single most important health supplement in modern history. No, there's not even another comparison to it. There are supplements out there that are probably real good. There are a lot of real good vitamins and minerals. That's all good. We need that. But friends, there is nothing that even comes close to this BioChoice product, because it literally helps your immune system deal with the things that are attacking your body. It has antibodies in it, in the powdered egg. That's what it is, powdered eggs with antibodies that immediately address some of the poisonous bacteria, some of the poisonous pathogens in our body. It is the most amazing thing, and I'm hearing from people all over the country, and especially now with the anthrax threats. They're talking smallpox possibilities, and you know, a lot of people out there walking around didn't get a smallpox vaccination. What, since 1972? Friends, this should be essential. You need guns, you need ammo, you need food, but let me tell you what, have BioChoice right there with the guns and the ammo, because it literally may save your life. It will certainly dramatically increase the quality of your life, because your immune system can address so many things. In fact, we've got a news clip. Let me show you This was on an ABC station recently in the Detroit, Michigan area. And I want you to watch this. Please do. This is a news clip, independent news clip. Nobody paid anybody to get this on. Take a look at this.
A dietary supplement is working wonders for a variety of people.
One doctor was so impressed with the results, he wants other people to know just what this product can do. Health First reporter Taryn Asher joins us now to tell us about it.
Well, what it does is really what's in its name, and it's called Immune 26, and it restores what's missing to help your body rebuild your immune system. And for patients suffering from multiple sclerosis or even diabetes, anything, a variety of illnesses, it's working miracles, and the results have been amazing.
It takes up to 12 o'clock to get everybody dressed and ready for the day.
The Brown family has had their fair share of illnesses and disorders to deal with. Arvid suffers from Gulf War syndrome, at one point bedridden. Their 4-year-old daughter Helen was born with a neurological genetic disorder which left her unresponsive. And Jan, a diabetic, had stroke-level sugars until their doctor studied and suggested Immune 26.
Within actually 48 hours, I dropped 200 points off my glucose number.
Her husband Arvid has energy and became functional. And Helen, who doctors said would be virtually a vegetable, showed life.
She's responsive and interactive with us. She's reaching for her hands.
The supplement they claim is responsible is made of eggs.
The only difference between these eggs and these eggs is that these eggs have antibodies that are directed to bacteria that cause human diseases as opposed to these. They also have immune factors,
which helps the body to heal itself. The FDA has approved the supplement for safety, although there are no medical claims. Dr. Forstall says Immune 26 is not a cure-all. It's one component, which gives the immune system the tools it needs to fight illnesses.
The effectiveness is very, very compelling, and we're finding people with a variety of illnesses find that they respond very well.
Dr. Forstall also says these days antibiotics are overused and the bacteria is becoming resistant. This product provides the building blocks to empower your immune system, and Dr. Forstall has witnessed it work with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, just a variety of illnesses. And what it does, it affects everyone differently. So it just depends on what you're lacking in your
immune
system.
It all comes from an egg. That's amazing.
It is.
All right. Thank you, Taryn.
Now, friends, this is no joke. This is no joke. If you would like a tape, we'll send you an audio tape. You can listen more about BioChoice. And there are some opportunities here if you'd like to get involved in selling this. We're at the ground floor level where Amway was in the very beginning, where the XL phone deal was in the beginning. Those that get in early have the possibility of making a little money at this. Certainly anything we sell. You can order, call us if you want to order this. Call us here at the show. You know our standard address, 327 Urban Rowland Road. Our phone number, 318-377-5189. If you'd like to order some, but if you'd like to get involved selling, we can help you with that too, because there are real opportunities. This stuff is going to be as big as the light bulb. It's going to be as big as a telephone. It's going to be bigger than the computer, because everybody on the planet needs to be taking this stuff. So it is recession-proof. This is an incredible product that everybody ought to have. So anyway, we've got a great show for you today, friends. Thank you so much for being with us. If you can help us stay on the air, please do. We need your help. Let's get another shooting show underway.
Stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
Friends, this is the new Georgia Arms 20th anniversary catalog. Of course, has a memorial there to our good friend Jim Clark there on the cover. This is a terrific catalog from the finest ammunition maker in the United States. They have all kinds of great prices on all sorts of ammunition: 243 Winchester, 270s, 7.62 by 39 Russian, all kinds of great stuff. They've even got 308 tracers, 30-06 tracers, all kinds of neat stuff here in this great new Georgia Arms catalog. They have components if you want to load your own ammo, and look here, we've got the shooting show and our new 460 Rowland kit on sale as well. Georgia Arms has the best prices for custom grade ammunition that I'm aware of in the United States, and guess what else? They're helping to support our shooting show. Friends, give them a call today. Free phone call, free catalog, 1-800-624-6861, 1-800-624-6861 from Georgia Arms, and please remember to tell them that you heard it and saw it here on our program.
This painting graphically illustrates the point that for all its strengths, the .58 caliber rifled musket did not have a volume of fire that was compatible with its accuracy. If soldiers were extended in any sort of skirmish line, their massed volume of fire was so low that they might well be overrun. This problem could in some measure be solved with a breech-loading weapon. The U.S. Indian Wars provide some perfect examples of the changes wrought by the breech loader when it replaced the muzzle-loading rifled musket. It would perhaps be profitable to start with the war between the states. Many historians are prone to criticize the decision makers in the war between the states as being stupid. The historians say that machine guns and repeating rifles were available. Anyone should have seen their superiority and should have adopted them immediately. Such historians are technical illiterates. The weapons of the war between the states were 19th century weapons and were in no way equivalent to anything we conceive of in the 20th century. For example, to characterize a Gatling gun as a machine gun is the grossest possible twisting of the term. The same is true of the breech-loading and repeating rifles and carbines of the war between the states era. Though they had a greater volume of fire than the rifled musket, those breech loaders and repeaters that did actually work, and there were few of those, suffered severe limitations in combat range. Further, at any one time, there were at least 15 or 20 competing designs of breech loaders and repeaters being shown to the Army. Each one was totally different in design and function, and took a completely different type and caliber of ammunition. However, each one had at least one salesman who could put on a demonstration proving his to be better than the others. Normally that salesman had more than a little political clout from some fellow in Congress. Regardless of what the salesman showed, cartridge cases and rifle designs were in their infancy and were not up to the claims made for them. When issued in the field, breech loaders like the Joslin were discarded immediately, for they were not worth carrying. Lastly, you should understand that the manufacturing plants, though much better in the North than in the South, were still not capable of producing breech loaders or repeaters in the necessary millions of copies, nor ammunition for them in the required billions of rounds. Given these limitations in manufacturing, the short combat range, the technical infancy and unreliability of the breech loaders and the cartridge cases, there were very good reasons for retaining the .58 caliber rifled musket as the primary shoulder weapon during the war. By 1866, however, things were changing. The attention that the war focused on the problem of breech loaders began to result in some very sound designs. Further, cartridge cases were rapidly improving, and the industrial capacity of the North found that post-war demand was more in line with what they could produce. Into this arena stepped Mr. Erskine Allen, a tool maker at the Springfield Armory. He patented and showed to the Army his method of converting the Springfield rifled musket into a breech loader. His basic idea was to cut out the breech area of the rifled musket. The resulting trough was filled with a breech block that pivoted upwards like a trap door. After discharge, the hammer was cocked, the lock released, and the breech raised. This extracted and ejected the old cartridge. The shooter then thumbed a new cartridge into the chamber, closed the breech, and was ready to fire. The first Allen conversion was chambered for a metallic cartridge which roughly duplicated the ballistics of the .58 caliber rifled musket. By 1866, his second model conversion, which included relining the barrel to accept a .50 caliber center fire cartridge, was deemed suitable for general military use. I should emphasize here that none of this was possible without a practical center fire cartridge case. The case held powder, bullet, and primer in one package. The cartridge case also served double duty by expanding against the chamber on discharge and sealing the powder gases in the barrel. This cartridge case is critical. The breech loader held the cartridge case, and the case sealed the gases. Back to Mr. Allen's rifle. It was adopted in July of 1866 and put into immediate production. By January of 1867, the first shipments of these rifles were on their way west. These rifles arrived on the frontier none too soon. Serious social discussions with the Sioux Indians were reaching a fever pitch along the Bozeman Trail in Wyoming and Montana during the period 1866 and 67. The Fetterman Massacre had just occurred, and the Army, with its post-war reductions in manpower, was having trouble holding on. The two major forts in the area, Fort Phil Kearny and Fort C.F. Smith, were adequately garrisoned and suffered no major risk of being directly overrun. Their wood-cutting and hay and water-gathering parties were in considerable danger. When confronted with isolated parties of whites, Indian tactics were simple. They attempted to close the range as much as possible, preferably by ruse or surprise. When it was time to join battle, they normally had one or two warriors expose themselves as firing dummies. As soon as the first volley was fired by the whites, the remaining Indians would charge pell-mell, knowing that at worst, the whites with muzzle loaders could fire one more volley before being overrun. In August of 1867, the Indians tried this at a hayfield outside Fort C.F. Smith and in a wood-cutting area outside Fort Phil Kearny. In both cases, they met with a large surprise as they suffered volley after volley in rapid succession.
Stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after these important messages.
The Violence Policy Center, VPC, is one more anti-gun, anti-self-defense, anti-Second Amendment organization that is brain dead when it comes to any real solutions as to how to prevent the kind of murderous terrorist attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001. In a column in USA Today of September 27, VPC Legislative Director Kristen Rand makes several arguments as to why pilots should not be armed. None of her reasons are compelling. Some of them are just silly. Argument. For openers, Rand says the call to arm pilots has a disturbingly familiar ring reminiscent of cries to arm school teachers following the 1999 Columbine High School massacre. She notes, thankfully, that the idea of handgun-toting teachers lost out to common sense and public safety. Our reply? Had teachers at Columbine High or any school personnel been toting handguns and knew how to use them, it is common sense to assume that there would have been no massacre. For example, in 1997 in Pearl, Mississippi, at the local high school, a student, Luke Woodham, murdered 2 students and wounded 7 others. During this carnage, Assistant Principal Joel Myrick got a handgun from his truck. He blocked a road as Woodham was on his way to murder other students. Woodham was ordered to the ground at gunpoint until police arrived. Myrick has said he has no doubt Woodham would have murdered more people had he not been stopped, since he had 36 rounds of ammunition in his pocket when he was finally subdued. Argument, Rand says, a handgun on every plane would mean that the weapon, by definition, would be potentially available to every passenger, from terrorists to unruly suicidal passengers. Well, we would reply, what about happened on September 11th? Since none of the pilots and none of the passengers were armed on the planes that were crashed, these planes were not potentially, but alas, actually available to terrorists. Well, then Rand says it's an unrealistic scenario to think that criminals would meekly surrender at the mere sight of a gun. Surrender? We're not talking here about merely brandishing a weapon. If pilots and/or passengers had guns and terrorists tried to hijack their plane, the plan would be to shoot them dead. Rand then says, well, experience teaches us that when police fire their weapons, they sometimes make mistakes in deciding when deadly force is justified. It is naive to believe that pilots will fare any better. Well, we would reply, nonsense. When an obvious terrorist is trying to hijack a plane, this is not an ambiguous situation. Not at all. Thus, every time a hijacker tries to seize a plane, deadly force would be justified and should be used quickly. Well, then she says, and she worries that another serious threat of having armed pilots would be the unintentional discharge of a handgun. Many such handguns can fire when dropped or bumped. Thus, a bullet could damage key flight controls, injure a fellow pilot, or pierce the hull of the plane. Well, we reply again, what about what happened on September 11? On this horrible day in American history, the Rand plan was in effect. No pilots, no passengers had guns. The result? Terrorist hijackers were able to do a lot worse things than damage key flight controls, injure a fellow pilot, or pierce the hull of the planes. They were able to crash the planes, murdering thousands of innocent people. Well, then, Rand says, many things can be done to protect pilots and passengers short of arming pilots. For example, dramatically improving screening on the ground and reinforcing cockpit doors in the air. Well, sure, great. But this is not an either-or situation. What Rand suggests should be done, and pilots also should be armed. Well, then she says sneeringly, dismissing the idea of making flight crews SWAT teams in the sky. She cringes at the notion of pinning our hopes on shootouts at 30,000 feet. We say to that, easy for her to say, since she wasn't on any of the 4 planes crashed by terrorist hijackers. But I'll bet that all of the passengers and pilots murdered on these planes would have welcomed the presence of a SWAT team on their respective planes. They would have welcomed a shootout at 30,000 feet or at any altitude, because such a shootout would have meant they would have had at least a chance of survival. The Violence Policy Center's webpage says, America is in a gun crisis, that the VPC is working to stem the tide of firearms violence engulfing the nation. But of course, America is not in a gun crisis. The rate of crimes committed with guns has been declining for years. In one sense, however, there has been a gun crisis. This gun crisis occurred on September 11. And the gun crisis was that none of the pilots or passengers on the 4 planes crashed by terrorist hijackers had guns. And it's shameful and a disgrace that the Violence Policy Center wants to perpetuate this gun crisis. And from Washington, this is Larry Pratt for Gun Owners of America.
To join Gun Owners of America, you can call them 888-886-GUNS, 888-864-4867. Remember, friends, we're helping keep us on the air. Let's please support them as well.
Stay tuned for more of The Shootin' Show after these important messages.
Folding stocks, for pistol grips, for regular stocks, for replacement stocks, for magazine extension tubes for your shotgun, for magazine replacement springs for your shotgun. How about the executive eye scraper, the executive letter opener, all from Choate Machine and Tool when you call for a free catalog. You can get the executive letter opener, a multi-purpose tool, or the executive eye scraper, a multi-purpose tool, for only your choice, only $2 when you call for a free Choate catalog. You can get both of them for $4, a $10 value. Friends, if you're a shooter or a gun owner, you need one of the Choate Machine and Tool Company catalogs. Call them today, 1-800-972-6390. In Ball Knob, Arkansas, they're helping to support our project. You need one of their catalogs. Again, 1-800-972-6390. And please remember to tell them that you saw it here on our show.
And now for our support group, we have Custom Leatherwork and Saddlery. We have Brooks Communication in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Dennis Crocker Firearms Training in South Carolina, Gearlings Equipment Rental in Southern California, and Mike and Sherry Harris Pilot Services and Consulting there in South Carolina. Friends, we're out of time on this week's program.